Guys, we're doing this because too many of you are feeling some kind of way about my opinions on Asian women relationships with Western men. Not just black men, not just white men, just men that are not Asian in general. Especially those black men that are all feeling some kind of way, saying, don't put us in the category with the white dudes. You should hear some of the stuff they say about you, blah, 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 blah. I ain't concerned about what they're saying about me. I'm concerned about how y'all treat us when we're just out living our lives and existing in the world. That's my concern. And that's the education I want to put on you all right? So I'm going to give you a little bit of a history lesson. You ready? So in the aftermath of World War II, American troops were in Korea in the 40s. And the Korean government and the American government sanctioned these camps where comfort women were stationed. So when I say comfort women, these are sex workers. So they were there for the morale boost of American soldiers. The Korean government recruited women from poor families, girls that ran away from home, because the entire country was impoverished post-war. So they made these military camps where the girls were, and the soldiers would go and pay, and they contributed to the gross national product of the country, to the point where I believe in the year 1969, I made little notes here, hang on. By the year 1969, which is the year I was born, Korean women in sex work directly providing American soldiers was about 10% of the GNP.
Damn. 10% was just pure women? That's a lot of cat. Or that's very little GDP that the country was bringing in at that time. But yeah, I mean, war is devastating in all fronts.
So basically what they're saying is, or what I'm taking from this is that she's going to lead onto the fact that, or the idea, leaning on the facts, or the historical significance of the fact that a lot of the soldiers, in a way in which they boosted the morale, aka paid for the morale to be boosted from soldiers, was the fact that they were leveraging Asian women in order to basically proliferate sex work. Now, it's a lot of people, especially passport guys and passport bros, that'll justify going over into other countries because, this largely started with the military being in Asian countries. But the fact of the matter is, this is now spilling over into today's time where women are saying we don't want to be sexualized anymore by Western men because we have a history of being sexualized from you. True. And I'm not really sure that that's a bad thing to say, we don't want to be sexualized anymore. But when the history of men, especially Western men, and dealing with Asian women, and not just for their looks, but also for the goods that they provided as a morale boost for, being.
I mean, remember Vietnam War? What was that? Full Metal Jacket, the show. Sucky sucky $5.
Me sucky sucky. Me love you too much. $5 is all my mom allows me to spend. Okay, $10 each. What do we get for $10? Everything you want. Everything? Everything.
And in these other countries and all of this, so on and so forth, it's hard, to deprogram a lot of these guys, or to deprogram the culture from looking at women this way, when even today,
I'm sure this is why a lot of women defend other women from other countries and are against passport bros, because just the way women are seen and the way Asian women have been propagated throughout all of history for the Western society, I can see it. But they also, a lot of, Western white liberal women also have never experienced what it is over there either. So it's like the women over here are telling women over there that we know better, we're trying to protect you, and women over there are just like, you know nothing.
If you go over into a lot of these countries like Thailand, It is a huge, huge economic force as far as how they get their money and how they get their resources, and whether
True.
or not guys are flying over there for the experience of the culture or if they flying over there just for the women. 9 times out of 10, they flying over there for the women, and then they justifying it by
I can 100% agree with Anton on that. Like maybe like 9 or 10, 8 to 9 times out of 10 when men are traveling to these countries, it's usually to get cat, right? It's not usually to experience culture and things like that. Majority of the time, if you're going to a Southeast Asian country, not saying there aren't men that are doing it, but I can see it.
saying that we just like the weather and the culture.
Let that sink in. And by 1970, it was about $160 million.
That's a lot
And
of
by
money.
1991, the direct impact to the Korean economy by American military presence connected to sex work provided by Korean women, sanctioned by the government, was $1 billion.
Now, I don't know how you
Jeez.
justify these numbers. I don't know where this study comes from. We're going to
What?
assume that she's right in this conversation.
We'll just assume if those were real numbers.
Now, my connection to that is I was born in 1969 in one of those clinics.
She looks really, really great for her age.
Hell yeah, she
The
does.
women were supposed to go to get checked for STDs and whatnot because they carried little cards with them regularly and they had to go get checked. So then the soldiers could look at their card and see when their last test was. And I don't know, to mitigate risk.
Easy.
I don't know what kind of safe sex practices were going on back then because there's a hell
probably
of a
none.
lot of us mixed blood babies running around. But as far as my parents are concerned, I didn't learn this until I met my dad in America the year I turned 50. That's 6 years ago.
Crazy.
And he said they were in love and he had gotten in trouble. They were going to get married. They had photos taken while she was pregnant with me and whatnot. But he had gotten in trouble with the law and he got shipped back home before anything could be done. And he says it's, there was no Facebook, there was no internet. I kept telling them I have a wife
Yeah, that makes sense. Back in the 1960s, yeah, it was going to be very hard to get a hold of each other.
and a baby back in Korea. And they were like, yeah, you and 100,000 other fools. So that was the sad story between my parents.
Okay.
But because my mom was in that line of work,
That's a sad
was-
existence.
It's a sad
born
thing.
in one of those clinics, which are really meant for treatment of STDs and for women to get abortions. But my mom was way too far along, so she ended up giving birth to me there.
That is a sad, 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 sad story.
It is.
And we don't talk about the collateral damage. And that's why I say being a good person has nothing to do with the law. Because somebody can go into a completely different country and then they'll be absolved of their moral character. And I'm not saying that that's the situation, of what happened with her or speaking of her story, but I'm just saying in general, like to be a good person and to know better and to do better is to be a good person and to know better and do better. Has nothing to do with whether or not it's legal here or legal there.
Correct.
Man, so many scumbags and being in the internet or on the internet as a content creator for a long time, I've had so many different conversations and debates, and people have said some of the scummiest things and justified some of the scummiest behavior I've ever seen in my entire life. But let's get to the rest of her story.
She eventually gave me up for adoption to be adopted by white people when I was 12. So there's a whole nother story with that, but we're focused on our relationships, right? So I want to bring up how when women are, just anyone really, when your world is impoverished and the person that is coming to rescue you, so to speak, is an American. And this doesn't matter whether you're black or white, just an American soldier in general. So Asian women, Korean women in particular, grew up with this understanding that when an American man comes, your world would get better. If y'all ever seen Miss Saigon, I know it's about Vietnam, but they talk about, there's a song called Movie in My
I said it. I talked about the Vietnam War. It is a very similar thing over there.
Mind, where it's heartbreaking. And the woman sings about how our children will eat too much ice cream and they'll laugh and play. And this is a life. And this is the movie in my mind that I play. So when you stop to think about Asian women and what we're taught as children with this background and with it.
I can see it. This is why I always say I don't really hate on Asian women picking white men or whatever it is. It just sucks that they always seem to hate on their own race. But living through the life of how, looking through the lens of their life, I can understand why. Because all of society, all of their life was told, find a white man, make your life better. White man's going to do that.
With that movie playing in our mind over and over and over again. I'm hoping, it's my wish, it's my hope, it's my great hope for the future moving forward, that you all consider what we come from, that you all consider how we were taught, that our bodies were currencies versus our humanity and who we are, and how you would want your daughter to move about in the world.
Of course.
That's what I'm talking about when I bring up this conversation. I'm not attacking black men. I'm not attacking white men. I'm not attacking the men, period. No. I'm talking about
I think she's going about it very well.
Much deeper, bigger picture of how this patriarchy, global patriarchy, has come to impact women around the world.
I don't think it has anything to do with the patriarchy.
It really doesn't.
Right?
that last statement right there almost threw out everything that she said to me, almost. But what she said wasn't wrong, right? But blaming the global patriarchy, or okay.
I think it has something to do with classism, poverty.
Correct.
There's so many factors. There's so many ways to unravel this, but I don't think that she's not justified in believing and feeling how she feels, because there's always going to be residual effects and damage that come along with whatever it is that people do. So even if people leave, right, even if they go about, let's say a guy goes over there today and gets a woman pregnant overseas, and then he just leaves, and then it's like, oh man, it never even happened. I don't really care. It's not even a big deal.
Which does happen decently often, by the way. There's a lot of single mothers in the Philippines. I'm sure there's a decent amount of single mothers in Vietnam and in Cambodia that had passport bros just running through them and leaving them to their own devices.
It doesn't mean that there's not going to be an impact or a butterfly effect on the person that you had done this with, or the children that are the byproducts of the havoc that you wreak. So I don't think that she's off. I don't think that she's, completely removed from reality as far as how it is that she sees things. The problem with this is that all men have to get this label on them, and that we're automatically, as Western men, we have to deal with this, because the reputation of a Western man from a Korean girl's perspective is such.
We don't usually deep dive into that side of the conversation too often, and it's an interesting side of conversation, because we talk about passport bros and us traveling, but yeah, these were the consequences of the original passport bros, the original military men, that kind of really changed the mentality of a lot of Southeast Asian countries. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. I really appreciate that, and I'll catch you guys next time. Ciao.